Tara Drozdenko is the director of the Global Security Program at the Union of Concerned Scientists. She's a physicist and has worked as a national security analyst for a decade for the U.S. government. And she joins me now live from the state of Wisconsin. Tara, great to have you on. You know, this is the closest point to midnight in the history of the Doomsday Clock. What exactly does 90 seconds to midnight look like, and how significant is that?
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. 90 seconds to midnight is the closest it's ever been. And the Doomsday Clock is really just a tool to try to bring public awareness to the existential threats of nuclear weapons and climate change. It's very hard for people to imagine the risks of nuclear weapons because they're much, much greater than people realize. So this clock symbol is a way for people to kind of put in context the risks of nuclear war and climate change. And what that looks like is that right now is a riskier time than we've ever had in history before.
So talk to us a little bit more about what's behind the decision to move the clock to 90 seconds to midnight. Again, the closest that it's ever been. I mean, we're looking at Ukraine, the threat of nuclear war, as you said, as well as the climate crisis. What other global security issues came into that decision making?
Well, so the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists is the one responsible for setting the clock every year. And they take into account a lot of different issues: nuclear risk, climate change, and as you mentioned, biological threats. There's a whole host of global security challenges that they consider carefully and deliberatively when they set the time on the clock every year.
So how can we turn back the clock and safeguard our future?
I'm really glad you asked that question. I think it's important for people to remember that we do have agency. There are things that we can do as individuals to reduce nuclear risk. If you live in a country that has nuclear weapons, you should talk to your elected officials, your representatives, and express your concern to them about nuclear issues. You can talk to them about the fact that you are not happy with your tax dollars going towards nuclear weapons. That's on an individual level. On a country level, the United States, which is where I live, and the policies that I work on, there's a number of unilateral things that the United States could do to reduce risk. For one, they could end the president's sole unchecked authority to start a nuclear war and call on other countries to follow suit. Secondly, they could issue a policy that the United States would never use nuclear weapons first in a conflict. This would reduce the risk of nuclear war due to miscalculation or misunderstanding. And third, the United States could cancel unnecessary and unwanted new nuclear weapons and reduce spending on nuclear weapons. The U.S. spending on nuclear weapons is actually contributing to a renewed nuclear arms race in the world. So those are a couple of things. Then on a geopolitical stage, it's actually very important that the United States and Russia begin to talk to one another again under the auspices of New START, which is the last remaining arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia that expires in 2026. It's important to resume talks, and the war in Ukraine has impacted those opportunities. So that's just something that we need to get going again.
Okay, we'll leave it there, and let's hope that the Doomsday Clock does not move any closer to midnight. Tara Drozdenko joining us from Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you.